So I was having a conversation with my daughter, and just talking about both my daughters, I have tried to teach them something about doing podcasting work or creative work or something, because it's what I do. So it's like, hey, your dad can show you how to do this if this is something you're interested in. But what I've never done is forced either of them into doing this kind of thing. And so I got a buddy who was like telling his daughter, like, hey, I'll pay you $50 per episode to edit my show for me, because I'm just tired of doing it. I just don't feel like doing it. Once I show you, the first probably 2-3 weeks that you do it, it's going to take you a couple hours. At least a couple 3 hours. But once you get used to doing it, once you understand what it is that I'm asking you to do, you can probably get it done in under an hour. And I'll give you $50 to do it. She's like, no, I don't want to do that. Went and got a job working at, like, I don't know, Auntie M's in what is that? Not donuts. What are they?
Pretzels.
The pretzel place in the mall. So he's like, okay. So turns over to his nephew and says, hey, nephew, I got this podcast that needs editing. I know you don't know anything about it, but I will show you exactly what you need to do, and I'll pay you $50 per episode. Gives him the same spiel. He's like, well, how long does it take? It's like, it takes me about 35-40 minutes. It's probably going to take you, once you understand how to do it, it's probably going to take you about an hour. He's like, for $50 for 1 hour work? No problem. So he does this now for a year. This was his senior year in high school, so he did it. He was editing his uncle's show. And he goes to college, and he's continuing to do it, because it's like, if he can make an extra $50 a week as a college student, that $50 goes a long way in college, because he's got a food plan, he lives in a dorm. That's just like, a little bit of side money that he can have. But when he gets to college, he meets people, finds out that his roommate's girlfriend wants to create a podcast. His roommate is a videographer. So he's like, well, I'll shoot it, but I don't know how to edit the audio stuff. I just know how to, just set the cameras up and stuff like that. So long story short, he starts doing this in his freshman year and ends up telling his uncle, was like, oh, hey, I really like doing this editing. In fact, I might even, declare this as my major next year or in his sophomore year. To make a long story short, this young man now probably edits 5 shows per week. So he's spending about 5 to 10 hours a week editing people's podcasts. But the kicker is that he's making about $1,000 a week doing it. And it's just, nice. It's purely side hustle money. And it may be more like $1,000 a month, not $1,000 a week. But just like you're a college student, you're making $1,000 a month doing something that you like doing, that you actually are now going to school to do. And I just think that that's a really cool thing. So the conversation that I was getting into with my daughter is that, what is it better to do to figure out how to do something and get good enough at it that you can charge people for it. So you basically now have side hustle money. It's not necessarily a full-time career or anything like that, but it's just, here's something you do on the side that you can make a little bit of extra money. I call it side hustle money. Or does it make more sense to just go out and get a part-time job? And we were going back and forth on it. And, and I will acquiesce on this. If you need the money immediately, part-time job, because if you get a job, as soon as you start working, they start paying you. Now, they may hold your check for 2 weeks or something like that, but you are making money immediately. Whereas if you start doing something creative, it may take you a minute to get good enough to where you can charge people and then get enough clients to do it regularly. But it was just a conversation about, should you learn how to do something as a side hustle? And like I said, this isn't podcast, necessarily. It's just recorded. We can use it if it makes sense to. But I would ask you, what are your thoughts on that? Side hustle, entrepreneurship versus part-time job, if you're going to be doing something.
Well, my thoughts are exactly what you're saying. Do it. Like my daughter, my oldest, Sierra, she's been on the show. She has her own business. And a lot of what she does comes from, and I won't give myself any credit here, but it comes from her drive when she was in high school and learning how to take pictures. And then when she got into college, she was asked by a bunch of people, because she had a camera, can you make a video? And this is, cell phone cameras were prevalent. This was like 90 or 2013 or whatever, but they weren't as good as they are now. And her camera was definitely better than what you would get for cell phone quality. And then she learned how to, over time, because I had a subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud, you're able to put it on 2 different computers. So she was able to use that. And then now she has a business that supports 3 people. And they're all able to, make money, and they're all able to go on vacations, and they can afford health insurance and all the other stuff. It's all based on, like, it all came down to her learning how to use a camera in high school in a class, and then just kind of having that drive and desire. And she did work for, she worked for a couple of charities, doing this stuff. She's done big events, but overall, I think that played into making her successful, because she built those relationships over time. But those relationships were built out of side hustles, not out of like just going to a party and meeting somebody, but her actually doing work.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I really think that it's like, young folks, if you can just learn. Everyone always is learning some skill. You're always learning something. If you're not learning, then you've got way more concerns about, are you actually upright, not in the box under 6 feet of dirt? So you're always learning something. But I really wish, and you can't necessarily put this on the schools, because it's just enough for public school, at least, for them just to teach you how to read and write. Hopefully they're doing that. I would love if they were teaching, like entrepreneurial skills and stuff, because I really don't think you get that in high school. There may be like some elective classes you can take, but I don't think it's like just across the board. People are learning how this is how entrepreneurship works. This is how, if you were to go out and create a business, this is how it works, and those skills, because, moving over into the creative world, into where we are, I have a lot of conversations, because Bodie, I got way more time than you got, man. It's like, you're a full-time firefighter during the day. I'm just doing this stuff. I'm sitting in front of a microphone and a computer screen all day long. So sometimes I'll just pull my phone up, even though I'm sitting here in front of 4 other monitors, and I'll be on my phone doing the doom scroll that everybody does on my phone. And I start having these conversations with folks, and I'll hear people say, like, I want to get monetized. I want to make money. And we've probably talked about this on the show before, but what does getting monetized mean? It's like, do you actually understand what that is? And I think that a lot of folks that want to be creators or even trying to be creators don't understand how you can generate revenue from it. It is, when I get a certain number of followers, or when I get a certain, when I go viral, then I'm going to, I'll be inside. If you're on YouTube, I'll be inside of YouTube's, program for AdSense, and I'll be able to make money that way. Or if it's on Instagram, I'll make some money from, directly from Meta, or whatever the case is. But you're thinking that is the thing, and not actually what is happening. And, and I've had people who have challenged me on this, but I truly believe this. When it comes to a content creator, the only way you can make money as a content creator is to sell something to your audience, or to sell your audience to someone who wants to sell something to your audience. I don't think there's any other, when you break everything down, I don't think there's any other way that, that revenue could be generated. And, we hear folks say, well, no, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just going to, once I get enough, viewers, once I get enough people watching, I'll get monetized and I'll be able to have ads on there. And it's like, do you actually go to the next step to understand what those ads are and why those ads work? Because if you don't, you probably, you'll get to the point where you are monetized, but you're never going to make more than $9 or $10 a video, which isn't sustainable unless you're able to put out thousands of videos, which individuals can't do. It's just, you can only put out so much content. So I just think that if we learned more entrepreneurial skills, we would understand that it's not just you get to the point to where Google says, oh, you now have enough traffic to where you get monetized. It is, understanding what that actual monetization is. Because if you understand it, you'd also understand that you can probably do way better than just relying on AdSense. Not saying that AdSense is bad, because Google's going to take half of whatever you make. They automatically, right off the top, half of it goes to them. So if half of it goes to them, that means if you were doing something different, you probably could have been making more than what you get from like an AdSense situation. Depending on the kind of content you create, if it is something that you can sell your own products and services on, you ultimately don't necessarily need to have any ads on your content. You can just promote your own stuff, and then you get a client from your own stuff, and then you're charging them. But I don't think a lot of people think about content creation that way. It is, for the overwhelming majority of people, it is, I'm going to hopefully go viral one day. I'll get enough subscribers. I'll get enough watch time. I'll get enough, people watching my content to where just magically ads just start to appear in my content. And that's how you make money. And I think as I said, the biggest mistake in that is not understanding how that actually works. When you get good at it, people understand it. But I think that so many creators right off the top is like, I want to get monetized. It's like, well, what does that mean to you? And it's like, it's never about actually generating income. It's always about, I need to get enough subscribers so I can just get this magical thing called monetization.
Yeah, it is funny. And I had, a similar viewpoint before I started monetizing my show. How much work you have to do to get those pennies, right? So typically you'll have like a CPM, and I'm forgetting what the M is, but it's basically cost per thousand. Yeah,
basically I think it's it Latin for I know it stands for cost per milli, but or cost per mil, but that's like basically for every 1,000 people who view your content, this is how much we are going to pay you for it.
Yeah, and I'm only basing this off of Acast, right? For Acast, it was about $22 to $25 CPM. So for every 1,000 downloads I had, I would get, $25-ish dollars. Early on in the process, it took me, there was a minimum of $50 before you get paid out. And early on in the process, it would take me 2 or 3 months to get $50. And I was getting, 400 to 500 downloads per episode. So it wasn't like, and I was releasing multiple episodes a week. So it wasn't as if my CP, it wasn't as if I was getting 0 downloads, So it would take me a couple months, and then eventually it got down to like once a month I was making 50. It takes a long time, unless you have some sort of flash hit, which not many people do. It takes a long time to build that to a point where you're actually making some decent money, and tens of dollars turns into hundreds, and eventually hundreds turns into thousands. But that takes a lot of time, and then on top of that, it takes a lot of work. So programmatic ads, like what Acast does and some other places do, they pay less of a CPM than what if you do a host-read ad. And you're going to get more money from a host-read ad, and that's typically negotiated, right, between you and whoever, whether you have a podcast network or if you have, if you're going out and getting your own ads. But that means that if you're going out and getting your own ads, you have to take the time to reach out to these companies. Sometimes they'll reach out to you if you're a big enough creator, but you have to take the time to reach out to these companies. You have to prove your value. You have to prove what your audience, what your audience's value is to that advertiser, and then from there, you have to do the read, and then once you've done that, now you have to report a bunch of stuff back. So you're making more money, but it's also more work. So programmatic ads are great because it's very little work, but it's also very little money. Host-read ads, a lot more work, somewhat more money, not a lot more money, and it depends on who you are. And then you have to do all this work behind it, and unless you have a team or you are with a podcasting network or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And then if you're going the Patreon route or Supercast or Substack or whatever, there is a certain amount of work that goes into that, which includes, actually replying to your creating content and replying to your community. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you have to meet certain community needs. Like some people are just perfectly happy to support you. Others want to see some sort of extra value for supporting you. That could be access, or that could be more content, or that could be something completely different. There's a bunch of different models out there, but all of that takes work, and you're talking, anywhere between, and I'll use myself as an example, the cheapest that you can do on my Patreon is $1. And you can do as much as you want. I don't put a lid on that.
You're doing $1 because you're grandfathered in.
Yeah.
You can no longer do $1. I think $3 is the minimum now on Patreon.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so just want to let for any folks who are saying, you can have somebody sign up for just $1. Not any longer. You'd have to go over to something like Buy Me a Coffee or something like that to go that low.
Yeah, Supercast does that low. That's one of the reasons why I chose Supercast, is because they would let me go that low. But I only have one person that supports me on Supercast. So I do extra work for one person who I don't even remember how much it is they support for, but it's less than $5. But I do it because I like to have the options, and it's, an extra 8 minutes in my day to do it. But that's times 8 times a week. So, that does add up. But so the point here is not to squelch anybody's expectations. It's to give you realistic expectations. Like, we're not trying to rain on your parade, but you do need to have a realistic expectation. Rob, you're really you say this a lot. It only took so and so 15 years to become an overnight sensation. Like, that is 100% true. You're overnight because Joe Blow had never heard of you before, but there were people that were supporting you before that, and you just at some point in time decided things were going to pop off for you, which is great, and hopefully that happens for everybody who listens.
So let me tell you a little story. This just happened last week. So for those of you who don't know, I am one of the hosts over at Daily Tech News Show. So I host Daily Tech News Show, Daily Tech News Show Live, Daily Tech Headlines, and some other stuff that we do over on that platform. And for whatever reason lately, I have been getting fan mail. So I'm thinking of one message from someone named Gabby who wrote into the show and said, "Hey, Rob is such a great addition to the show. We love him on the show." And I so appreciate that folks appreciate what I'm bringing to them. But what Tom and I were talking about is it's like I said, it took 10 long years of of hard work to become an overnight success, because my first appearance on Daily Tech News Show goes all the way back to 2017, like the beginning of 2017, like January, February of 2017. So we're 9 years in, having been on that show. Now, over that time, it has changed. When I first was on the show, I think Allison had introduced myself, Rod Simmons, Chris Ashley. We did a show called SMR Podcast and introduced us to Tom, and then I think Tom got me on, and it's been ever since. But like I said, that was just making an appearance one time, and then maybe a year after that, it was like, "Hey, would you like to come back on?" It's like, "Yeah, be cool." And then it was like, "Well, that was good. Would you like to maybe do this more on a regular basis over time?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, that's cool." So I would appear, once every few months, and then it was like once a month, and then it was like once or twice a month, and then it was like, okay, now you're going to do 7, 8, 9 shows a week, and get your name on the website. So it took a while to do it. And, and that's one of the things that, if we make a pivot in this conversation, is that, you cannot skip steps when it comes to content creation. Now, are there people who put one video out and that video goes viral and then it takes off for them right from there? Yes, there are. But that is That a lot of times that is luck. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that I think that luck is the confluence of preparation and opportunity. So I think that the people who get lucky like that have actually been doing it a little longer than you probably think. But I will concede the point that there probably are some folks who created 1, 2, 3 videos and had a video go viral, and it created a platform for them right out of the gate, so to speak. That is very, very uncommon. Let's just say that happens to 1 in a million people. Usually what it is that it's video after video after video. And if you were to go through and look, and as I am getting more into video, something I'm definitely focusing on more in 2026, as I'm looking at metrics, it's basically you'll have videos that will go for 3 or 4 months and they get nothing. And then one video, for whatever reason, it'll go viral and it'll jump up, and then you come down. But now the point that you come down to is not back to the base of where you were. It's just a little bit higher. But once again, you're down at the bottom of this graph, and then another video will go viral, and then it'll come up. But what you will start to notice after time, after months, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, is that you're getting more frequency of videos that overperform, and then videos that you created months ago that didn't get any traffic on them for whatever reason, they start to perform. So it is a long play when it comes to content creation, at least from a podcasting and video standpoint. It is really rare that you're going to put something out today and tomorrow it goes viral. That's generally not how it works. It's like you put something out today, something out next week, and something out for the next 4 months, and then a video that you put out week 3 gets the viral bug, and you have no idea why. You need to see 4 months, 8 months, a year's worth of data to actually understand, what it is. So I think that a lot of creators, they will start when it comes to podcasting. Most people don't make it past episode 3. I believe that over half of podcasts end before they get to episode 3. That means they only recorded 2. If you don't even get to 3, it means you only recorded 2 max. But half of shows don't get to episode 3 or past episode 3. 90% of shows don't get beyond episode 10, and only 1% of shows get beyond episode 20. So, yeah, are there a lot of podcasts out there? Yeah, but there's a lot of dead podcasts, a lot of podcasts that have not put out anything. So the moral to the story that I think that I'm telling is that it just takes time. And it's, if this is something that you want to do, you better love it, because you're going to do it before you see the results from it. A lot, in the beginning. Now, you and I have advantages. If we were to go create a new show today, we probably can see that show do a little bit better than maybe the average person just starting out, because we have years of experience and kind of know where to go. But you can't skip steps. I've been saying this a lot over the last 6 months. You cannot skip steps. You may be able to find a guide who can tell you where to step, so that you don't actually get stuck in the pothole or run off the road. But you can't skip the steps. You got to take them. And I think that that's one of the reasons why so many people fade out so quickly, is because they're trying to get rich quick, and this is not it. So, going back to our original conversation with side hustle, type entrepreneurial type businesses versus part-time jobs. When do you need the money? If you need the money today, you probably want to go and get that part-time job, because you'll get a paycheck in a couple weeks. If you're looking longer term, and let me just go back. This is how this conversation started between my daughter and I. She's like, I think that once we get, probably to the middle of spring and it's pretty warm, I'm going to get a part-time job. And I'm like, if you know that it's going to be 6 weeks, 10 weeks away before you actually do it, why don't you just start creating something now that maybe in 3-4 months, it actually is generating income? And if you were only looking to go get something part-time that's going to pay you, $12, $15 an hour, and you're only looking to work 10 hours a week, why not try to build something to where you are doing something, for yourself and making that same money? And I just don't think that a lot of people think like that, because, can everyone be an entrepreneur? No, markets would not work that way if everybody only works for themselves. But there's a lot of people that can do stuff on the side. I'm just thinking, we are still under this winter storm stuff. We're no longer having storms, but it's just been very cold. We have not been above 32 degrees in over a week and a half now. So all the snow that we got back when literally 30 something states got buried under ice and snow, all that snow is still on the ground because yesterday was like the warmest it's been. It got to 28. Today it's going to be a little cooler. It's only going to get to 22, and it's going to cool off. It's only going to be in the teens this week. So I got 1.5 feet of snow outside. It's going nowhere because it's just too cold for it to melt. But there's a kid that comes by, is like, hey, you want me to shovel out your mailbox? Because every time the plow comes by, the mailbox gets covered up. And it takes him 5 minutes to do it, but it's $10. So he'll just walk down the street with his shovel. It's like, hey, whenever the plow comes by, he's going by digging out people's mailboxes. And when he came to do it, the last time he did it, I was like, oh crap, I don't have like a 20 on me. Because I always, he only charges 10. I give him 20. I give him literally give him a really nice tip. And like, I don't have any cash on me. He's like, well, I can make change. And he opens up his wad of cash. He probably had $200 or $300. So it's like he has been, doing when he gets home from school. If that plow has come by, you no sooner than you hear the bus come down the street, 20 minutes later, here comes this kid, shoveling the snow, putting extra money in his pocket. I'm just thinking there should be more people like that. Whether you're young or old, more people that are doing those kind of things.
Yeah. No, it's, I'm in between wanting to tell a story and extending this out and just kind of touching off. So I'm going to touch off what you said and maybe we'll talk about the story afterwards. But, so when you were talking, when you said, unless you blow up really fast, right? That you said that early on when you were talking. And then you followed that up with find yourself a Sherpa, find yourself a guide, find yourself a mentor, right? So when the first time you said, if you blow up really fast, I was like, what cautionary tales can I think of that where someone blew up really fast and then it kind of imploded also just as fast? And Haley Welsh, do you remember Haley Welsh?
Talk to a girl?
Talk to her. I do believe that she is not an awful human being, but if you know her story, she was on a viral video. She created a mini empire within months, and then she got involved in a crypto scheme, which genuinely I do feel like maybe she didn't know what was going on in that because I follow crypto, I own crypto, and I don't entirely understand when meme coins come out. I understand enough to know that I would never assign my name to something like that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. She did it and she's got to pay for it. But after that, a bunch of people bought into her meme coin and then it crashed because a bunch of people who were in the know sold, made a bunch of money. And then there were folks who were left with very little or nothing. So, that's kind of one of those things is when you surround yourself with people, because she could have had a very popular podcast, because she had a podcast for a little bit. She could have had a very popular podcast for literally years and made way more money than she was making. I think she was like working in a spring factory or something like that. Mm. That's all about who you surround yourself with and not skipping steps. Like you said, that's a cautionary tale. And honestly, I don't, hopefully everybody gets, their money back and that whole thing turns out. But just kind of wanted to follow up with that. And then I thought, since this is the last episode, Rob, and I think we've had a good conversation, I thought I'd kind of go over our last couple of, or our last season of episodes, and maybe a word or two, a sentence or two on each thing, kind of summing each thing up for everybody. And then I want to talk a little bit at the very end about Acast and their new video service.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start off and Superman marketing lessons every podcaster needs. Do you have a sentence or two for that?
So that was the show where we used the Superman movie that was shot in Cleveland, Ohio. And we talked about, it was the marketing of that movie and just how much how much movies spend on the marketing and promotion of their movie. So I can't remember the numbers, but let's just say that it was, we'll call it, the movie cost 10 units. Well, the marketing of the movie cost 11 units. They actually spent more movie on marketing Superman than they did on the actual making of the movie. So, what we talked about was that when you're a content creation, that can't just be it. If you build it, he will come only worked in the movie Field of Dreams. When it comes to regular content creators on the internet, you need to spend as much, if not more, time promoting your work than you actually did creating the work. And I think that throws a lot of people for a loop.
Yep. And it's a lot of work, just like with the stuff we were talking about with ads and monetizing. The marketing is a thankless and not fun job for most people, but it's a lot of work. Next one, Rob, is the ultimate guide to being a great podcast guest.
Make the host look good in front of their audience, and they will love you forever. I think that was a big part of what we talked about in that episode. So what do I mean by that? If you're going to be a guest on someone's show, is not just your opportunity to go hawk whatever products you have. That makes it a commercial. If someone is truly inviting you to come on their show and have a good conversation, have a good conversation. You can have a few things that you want to get across to their audience, but do it in a way where you're benefiting the audience. And while you're doing that, if you can make the host look good, that host, that means so much to them, because interviewing someone, unless it's something you do every episode, it's a skill set that you've got to build up. So a lot of times people are bringing you on the show and they don't necessarily interview people every episode. So they're not practiced at it. And, the conversations can kind of go wonky sometimes if you have a guest that all they're trying to do is just talk about what they want to talk about. And ultimately, the guest hasn't really, allowing the host to steer the conversation that's going to be most beneficial to the audience. So the key with that episode was that we wanted to get across, if you're going to be a good guest, be a good guest. And like I said, make the host look good. And ultimately, by doing that, you'll make yourself look good.
Absolutely. Like a lot of people who come on my show, not a lot, I'll say, some people that I've interviewed who've been on my show definitely had something that they wanted to promote, and they had something that they wanted to say, and they had a message that they wanted to give. Some of those don't get aired. Some of them get aired, but in an interview that might be normally 20 to 30 minutes long, if you ever see an interview that was 15 minutes, that was probably why. Because they wanted to steer the conversation where they wanted to go. And, while they might have said some things that were interesting, the benefit to me of having you on your show, or having you on my show, is getting the information. The benefit for you is the exposure to the community that I've built. However, it can't just be a commercial. If it's a commercial, then that's not going to work out. Let's see. The next one, Rob, is me. Riverside to Final Cut Pro workflow, how to edit a video podcast with those two. Don't really have much to add on that, other than I don't do that as much as I used to anymore because Riverside got so much better. Yeah, and it saved me time.
As we literally were recording the show, I think Riverside, I put some new stuff out. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know you could do this. It's like Riverside has actually gotten pretty good for a web-based video editor. It is not Descript yet. It's not there, in my opinion. I think, if you were to give Riverside on a scale of 1 to 10, you might give Riverside a 7.5, to 8.5, and then Descript would get the 10 on that same scale. But it is quite good. It is very good. If I were using Riverside as my primary, recording platform, I would no longer continue to use Descript. I think that it is that good. Now I'm not, so I still am using Descript. I'm a fan. I'm really a fan of that product, and I use it more so for the editing than I do for the recording. But Riverside has really stepped its game up.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. Chuck Joyner, who, man, I want to say he hosts the Mac Geek Gab or Mac Voices. Mac Voices is what he hosts. We saw each other at CES a year ago, right, in 2025, had dinner, and with a bunch of other people. And I was telling him about all of the tools that I used with Final Cut to make editing easier, a multi-show podcast, right? those tools stopped working like a week or two after working the way I use them, I should say, a week or two after we had that dinner. And then in 2026, when we were in Vegas, Chuck came up to me. He's like, hey, I need you to not only tell me what program you're using again, but sit down and show me how to use it. And I had to tell him, I was like, I am so sorry. the whole thing stopped, but I showed him in Riverside. Like I brought, I think, what was the event on Tuesday night? Showstoppers?
Yeah, I believe that was. Yeah, Showstoppers was the third.
So
night.
I brought my laptop to Showstoppers, and we were on one of those little cocktail tables at the end of the night, and I was showing him how I edit in Riverside with the automatic speaker changing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't know if this is something Riverside put in or if it just learned over time when I was editing. But when you and I are talking and the speaker's about ready to change, but we're kind of still having a little interaction before somebody goes on a long diatribe again, I put both of our video up. And then as soon as he kind of switches over to the next speaker, I put whoever's speaking up, right? So it's a nice little transition. Riverside started doing that automatically with the settings that I have. Like, what a great way to... So I was showing him how that worked, and he might switch over from whatever he was using to Riverside because of that. Because he spends a lot of time... He has a lot of video content. He spends a lot of time editing that video. And for me, it saved me at least an hour. Mm-hmm. And not having to do that. And sometimes I have to go back because I'm like, okay, I'll put little notes in, put in this graphic here or that graphic there. But in general, it saved me a significant amount of time, which goes into our next one, which is use the right tool for the job.
That is, it's such a simple statement, but there are folks who will try to, there's two things. Don't just download every tool in the world because, here's a new butterfly or bubble, and you just drawn to it. Find out if the tool set you already have actually has something similar or something that's good enough to do what what you're trying to get done. But when you're trying to do something and you don't have the right tool to do it, all you're going to do is cost yourself immense amounts of time trying to work around it, and probably still end up buying the tool. I say just get the tool right off the bat. What you will learn as a content creator is that your time is the most valuable asset that you have. Honestly, your time is the most valuable asset that anyone has. And the more time you spend doing things the hard way, when there is an easier way where there's a tool that can do it for you, the less time you're going to have to actually create the content, which is what probably drives you in the first place.
Absolutely. Rob, we did this one right before Christmas, and this one is by far the most downloaded podcast that we've had to this point, and that is capturing authentic moments without overthinking. And in this, we were talking about sitting down with family members and just having a conversation. You don't even need to post it or record it, but just kind of saving this for posterity.
We did this today. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that this was going to be one of the ones that you brought up, because I didn't even remember off the top of my head that was an episode. But what did we do today when we started? Hey, Bodie, just go ahead and start recording. This isn't the podcast yet, but let's just record just in case we say something dope. So that episode, if I remember correctly, that was right around the holidays. I had just visited some family, and one of the things that we did, was really cool, was that I got, some older family members. I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to see them, because it's like, one thing that Father Time is undefeated. Yeah. So what we did was, it wasn't a podcast. This wasn't something that's going to go out on YouTube for the world to see. But we set up some microphones and a couple cameras so we could just capture the conversations that were happening around the elders that were at this event. And it was absolutely so worth it to do it, to the point to where it's so easy to set up. This is stuff that we were doing with the, just setting up, setting a couple of these wireless microphones on the table, or putting them on the elders that we knew were going to say, something dope, and just recording with cell phones. And it was beautiful. Like I said, I'm not an editor. I have a cousin who is, and just looking at the edit for that, once again, this is something that the world will never see. This is just for our family. But just having that is like taking pictures. This is the 2025 version, or the 2026 now version of taking of taking pictures and having a photo album and being able to go back and go through that. We are now able to go back and actually look at videos of family members that were just telling stories from when they were kids back in like literally the early 1900s. I mean, you know, I had a family member at this event that was born in 1929. That tells you how old they are.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about how to mic people up if you're doing a one-on-one versus doing a multiple, where to set the camera and kind of how to set focus to whoever is the subject, right? You might have a lot of people in the room, but you really want to highlight the person who's speaking and things like that.
For that type of recording, put the microphone on or near the older folks who have the stories to tell, and set your camera to 4K wide. You can always punch in if you need to, but just pick up as much as you can. Files are going to be big, but it's so worth it to do it. Set 4K wide. That way you can punch in if you need to.
And the thing is with that too is, like, there is something documentary style when you hear somebody's voice that's crisp, right? Somebody who's telling the story. And then maybe off camera or off mic, you hear somebody talking, and it kind of takes away from a produced feel, and it feels like you're more a part of the. It's almost like you're in the room, right? It's it changes the feeling, and when you're doing something like this for family, having that ability to make the people who are maybe your grandkids, Rob, feel like they were in the room at that point, I think it adds more of an impact. Mm-hmm. So not everybody has to have this great mic setup. It's okay if somebody's asking a question from off mic or even off camera, because it kind of does make it feel more informal and kind of more like you're there.
Yeah, that was a fun time. It was a fun time.
All right, wrapping up here. We got three more, and then one more update. But get the most out of conferences. This was a good one.
So, and you did this year. When you go to a conference, get it in your mind that you're there to network. Make as many connections as you possibly can, because when else are you going to have that opportunity? So don't just think that you're going to go to a conference and just go to booth to booth to booth and look at stuff. There are a bunch of people who are there that you can make make a connection with, that you may go on their show. They may come on your show. You may decide to do a show based off of somebody that you meet. Those kind of things actually happen. But when you go to a conference, you want to do a couple of things. Make it as easy as possible to tell somebody about what it is that you do and for them to follow it. So if you just go and say, oh, I've got a podcast on XYZ, go check it out, chances are they're probably not. But if you actually do something that you have started doing, something I've been doing for a couple of years now, is give them a QR code or give them an NFC tag to where they can just tap their phone and your information just automatically comes up. And from a podcaster standpoint, I literally have the ability to have somebody tap their phone or scan a QR code. It brings them right to what I call a listen to page, to where all they can do is subscribe to the show right there. It'll take them right into Spotify. It'll take them into YouTube Music, which is Google's version of Spotify, or it'll take them into Apple Podcasts. I know that there are other things, but those three are 84% of all of the way that people listen. So those are the three you always want to make sure you have, and then maybe like a pod link that just gets everything else. But make it easy for somebody to listen to your show, because everybody that is at a podcasting conference, they're all podcasters. They're going to remember the ones that stand out. But if you are doing that networking and you're showing something cool, like, hey, just touch my phone to your phone, and it just pulls up your podcast, that's cool. If I remember correctly, I think that I told a story about one of the actual hosts of the event she had really nice long nails, and she actually had an NFC tag in her nail under her thumb. So for her, this is one of the hosts of the event, but she started a new podcast a few months before this event. One of the things she was able to do was, when she's talking about her podcast, like, hey, just scan my thumb. There's a coolness factor in that, where people are like, how am I scanning your thumb and getting to your podcast? That's memorable. You're going to remember that. Most people aren't walking around with with NFC tags where they can just scan, use their phone like they're at a like at an ATM, not an ATM terminal, but like a payment terminal, to where you just put your phone over and it just comes up. That's not uncommon, but it's not what everyone is doing. Everybody's kind of got QR codes on their business card now. The NFC tag is the one that I would say, even more so than when we did this episode, that is the cool factor where you can just make it pop up. No one has to actually go into an app. It just does it as long as they have NFC enabled on their phone.
Agreed. And I started using the little dot. That's what you're talking about, the dot business card. Stop announcing and start promoting your podcast.
So, if I remember, that was the episode where we talked about the donuts, Krispy Kreme. So Krispy Kreme is a donut shop. And one of the things that Krispy Kreme has is that they have a neon sign in every store that when it is on in red, it says fresh and hot. That lets you know they're announcing that we have fresh and hot donuts in the store. Now, for anyone who's never had a Krispy Kreme donut before, that doesn't really mean anything. But it means something to the people who know Krispy Kreme. It's like, ooh, I could go for a hot donut right now. Just because you see the sign, they're making an announcement. That's not how you want to tell people about your podcast episodes. You don't want to just announce them, because announcing is simply it's kind of like having a sign at the mall that says we've got clothes. Well, it's a mall. You kind of expect that. That's not a reason for somebody to change their behavior. What you want to do is promote. You want to give someone a reason to listen, a reason to read, a reason to watch, more so than just saying something is available to be read, something is available to be listened to, something is available to be watched. That's announcing. Promoting is actually giving them a reason to take action on what it is that you're trying to get them to do.
Absolutely. Now, our last episode, before the one that everybody's going to listen to here, was about me joining the Believe Network. We're going to put that on pause because at some point in time we'll talk more about that. But I don't really have anything. It was like a week and a half ago that we talked about it, so I don't have anything to add right now for that. So we'll end it with your visit to Brian Brushwood's Do Your Weird Thing, not conference. Wasn't a class. What was it? It was
an intimate gathering of a few more than a handful of people. It was I think it was 7 people total. And so it was a very intimate gathering. But for those who aren't familiar with Brian Brushwood, Scam School is one of the things he's probably most known for. He does a show with Tom Merritt from Daily Tech News Show, called Cord Killers. But he's a magician, and he's gone around, and he's our age. So he's like, I'm getting kind of tired of going around the country, 3 or 4 days out of the week, going to college campuses doing magic shows. It's like, there's got to be something else. So I was able to, for one of the first times he has done this, he's getting into more of the corporate training and teaching people how to use content to ultimately further their goals, whether that be, you become a public speaker, you become a podcaster, you become a YouTuber, you actually get a TV show or radio show, whatever that is, whatever your weird thing is, he's trying to help folks, get to that. And I was able to go to that. I think that Tom Merritt from Daily Tech News Show went to the first one and said, Rob, this is something you should probably go check out, because he knows, kind of the stuff that I'm interested in doing. So I'm so glad that, I was able to go and hang out for a few days of watching Brushwood just kind of take you through the process of here's how I've done these things. This is what has helped me be successful. Once again, he gave me no information that was going to allow me to skip steps, but he told you where to take the steps. Basically, he helped avoid some pitfalls. Make you say, hey, you know what? It's going to be snowy. You might want to put boots on as you're taking these steps. Your feet won't get wet and cold. Those are the kind of things that I think a guide is very, very good for when it comes to this content creation thing that you and I are doing.
Agreed. Now, I mentioned that Acast was letting you do audio and video. Right now, we got an email from Acast last week, and they said, hey, we have a beta feature so that you can upload everything into Acast, and we'll send it over to YouTube for you. Hopefully Spotify video is coming soon for that as well. But early on, Acast would upload your audio to YouTube, and then they stopped doing that. Now, on where you go into Acast, you can, put you have one section that you put and I'm not sure. Maybe I can share my screen on this. Hold on. You able to see that? Okay, Rob?
I can.
Okay, so this is totally normal, right? This is where you would put your audio file. If you wanted to create one, you could use Podcastle. This is where you upload your audio file. Once your audio file is uploaded, you can choose to transcribe it, which I always do. And then obviously you get your cover art here, and then your title, subtitle, episodes, all that stuff. This is where you put in your show notes. Okay, typically that's where it stops. Mm-hmm. But for this beta, and I'm sure it's going to come to everybody soon, you have the ability to add a YouTube cover, which I think is funny. You can only do a 2 megabyte YouTube cover art, which is it's not big, but it's not small either. But everything that we do, I generate in Dolly in ChatGPT, mm-hmm. and it's always 2.4 megabytes. I would kill for them to change this to 3, so I don't have to go into like Pixelmator
and down-res it.
Yeah, it drives me. It just adds a little bit of time. It's not the end of the world, but goodness gracious, it would be so much easier. But anyway, you upload your video, and then just like in the rest of this, I just take what's up here and I'll copy and paste it down here. That has changed the way, though, that I've had to do our show notes, right? So before, I would have everything hyperlinked so that it would be easy just to click on it. And it saves a little bit of space. Now I have, like, if we talk about, let's say, Brian's thing, right? It says, Brian Brushwood's Do Your Weird Thing. And then I'll have a link next to it. It won't hyperlink into the text because YouTube doesn't do that. YouTube won't do the hyperlink. So in order for me to be able to include it, I need to show the full URL. And then down here, you can select your visibility, and then you just, publish it. You can, you choose your ad markers. And I don't actually know if they do the ads on YouTube or not. We have to declare that they're doing that, so I'm hoping they're not. Otherwise, YouTube gets mad. But we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, how this works. I am all for, we talked about tools. I'm all for using the right tool to make your job easier, because if you've got to go to Acast and post, and then go to Spotify and post, and then go to Substack and post, and then go to YouTube and post, and you've got to do all these different things, it's going to take you more time. However, there is a caveat there. When it comes to the big boys, when it comes to the biggest one out there is YouTube, that might be a place to where I want to see, does it make sense for me to put the video here in Acast and push it to YouTube, or does it make more sense to just go to YouTube and do it there? I don't know what the answer to that is, but I definitely would investigate it, because I would not want to lose out on anything by posting directly to Acast, when I could I won't say just as easily, because it would be an additional step, but I could fairly easily go over and post that content directly to YouTube itself.
So as far as I can tell, and we've only done it with the one, there's no difference in posting it. When I go to manage videos, everything comes up exactly the same. Mm-hmm. I can still go into, and make sure that the transcriptions are done for the video inside of YouTube. And if for some reason I want to upload the VTT file, I can do that. So as far as I can tell, there's no big difference, other than I don't have to enter it into 2 different websites. Yeah,
like I said, things you can do to save time. One of the reasons I'm such a big fan of RSS, because you don't have to go post on every single platform.
Yeah.
You post it in Acast, and then Acast will push out to all these other platforms, or those other platforms will go to Acast and pull it to themselves. RSS is just it's a ridiculously cool invention.
Yep, agreed. So, Rob, I think this was a good last episode to the season. I think we decided we were going to do 8 episodes, and we ended up doing 10. So, overshot, which is not bad.
You and I are verbose. We like to talk.
Yeah, no, that's true. So, Rob, if people wanted to join our Patreon and learn about Season 5. Season 4 was a little bit weird, I'm going to be honest, about posting some Patreon stuff, behind-the-scenes stuff, just because we did Season 4 basically over 6 months. And that was not optimal. So we're definitely going to have a different plan and a different way of doing it for Season 5, but we'll talk about that in our Patreon behind the scenes, behind the post stuff. How would people sign up for Patreon if they wanted to learn more?
So, 2 ways to do it. You can go to patreon.com/beyondthepost, or you can go to beyondthepost.fm, beyondthepost.fm/Patreon. And you will show up and you're going to see multiple tiers over there. And we welcome anyone to come and hang out with us on these platforms. So, Patreon has been good to us, and we like using it. We like the community that is being built over there. So come and hang out with us in our Patreon. Once again, the way to do that is to head over to beyondthepost.fm/Patreon or patreon.com/beyondthepost.
Yeah, and since this is our last episode, let's give a little shout out to the folks that support us over there. Anon Jr. and Andrew are our paid supporters, but then we also have Jeffrey Megatron, which I think you know who Megatron is, and David. So thank you all for helping us support the show and being paid and free members.
Absolutely.
All right. That was good. I'm going to stop recording here.